The Bonneville Shoreline Trail has been under construction for 30 years. Join me, Brandon Plewe, and my son Spencer as we hike the 200-mile length of the BST to learn about its past, present, and future, and explore the landscape of this boundary between the city and the wilderness.
In this episode, we'll continue past the Coyote Hollow trailhead, through the north end of Draper, and into Sandy.
Well, that's a lot of trails. I can see we're here and there's the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, but I'm worried I'm going to get lost here. So fortunately today, I brought along a guest who's going to guide us. So this is Greg Hilbig. Hi Greg, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Greg is the Trails and Open Space Manager for Draper City. So he knows these trails better than anybody just about, don't you?
Yeah.
All right, well, we got a lot to talk about, so let's go hit the trail.
You've already done that one. I watched your video last week.
Oh,
Nice to have a little cloud cover. I'm not ready for 90 degrees yet.
no, this is early for 90 degrees. Greg, this park is quite the spectacle. It's a huge thing. How much land does the city own up there?
Close to 5,000 acres. Originally though, Corner Canyon, the amount the city purchased was only about 1,100 acres. South Mountain started to develop. A lot of the old-time trail users got together and wanted to preserve it because the land was owned by the local water company and there was developers interested. And so some of the early trail users convinced city council this would be something good to buy, and so they put it on the ballot as an initiative for the citizens to tax themselves to preserve this area, and it passed at like 58%, which is a huge margin typically.
For a bond issue.
Yeah, for a bond issue. That was in 2005, 2006, I believe. Shortly thereafter, the Trails Committee put together a master plan for this whole area, working with the National Park Service. I was hired in 2007 to basically implement the plan, start building trails, start putting in trailheads, and we've just been going ever since. We've acquired a lot more open space since then. So like I said, we have a total of close to 5,000 acres of open space. We have about 120 miles of natural surface trails. Wow. And just over 20 miles of paved trails that all connect into our system. And we now connect into Alpine and Lehigh and Sandy.
Yeah, and I guess Alpine and Lehigh have kind of followed your model of trying to acquire the undevelopable property. So, I mean, we probably have, I'd say 7,000 or 8,000 acres of city park basically here on Traverse Mountain now. So that's a lot of money that Draper puts into this, and the citizens are willing to put up a bond for to do that. Why does this matter to Draper? Why is the city committed to this kind of an area?
You know, better quality of life. It also preserves everything above the Bonneville Shoreline Trail here is watershed as well. You know, like originally this was looked at to potentially put in homes. And people have been using this canyon, you know, since they settled in Draper. And some of the original members of our committee, Clark, Naylor, and Parr, felt very strongly to preserve this because it had been used for recreation for so long. They didn't want to see it full of homes.
Right. One of the things that Corner Canyon has kind of set the model for was one of the earlier ones, I think, that really kind of tried to build trails professionally rather than, you know, kind of the small little social trails that we see around. It was, I mean, these trails are really built like professionally.
Yeah, so all of our trails are engineered. We spend an awful lot of time mapping them, bushwhacking, ground proofing, making sure that first of all our trails are sustainable before we actually go out and build. And we've worked with IMBA, who is kind of a world leader in trail design, to help us put together this system. The trails themselves have evolved over time too. We now have hiking only trails, biking only trails, multi-use trails, because there are so many users. Unfortunately, not everybody gets along, so we've got to have user specific trails to help out with that.
I guess I should congratulate you because this Corner Canyon area has really become one of the most well-known trail areas in the state, especially for mountain biking. Are there any challenges that come along with that, with this being so popular and so heavily used?
Yes, you know, we'll get a lot of new and inexperienced users, and because they know it's Draper, we'll get a lot of complaints that when they come in, you know, that people don't always know as much about etiquette and stuff, what to do in the outdoors. Crowding always, but just like anywhere, you learn that if you want to come for a hike on a Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know it's going to be busy.
Right.
Especially since COVID, we've seen a huge increase. You know, when COVID first hit, we have trail counters out, and some of our trailheads saw a 400% increase in use.
In 2020.
In 2020. 2021, the numbers dropped a bit, but they were still higher than 2019. All told, with our trail counters, we get over 1 million visitors a year on our trails.
So that means that the city not only had to commit to building the trails, but just keeping them up is a fair investment.
Yeah, so I have a small crew. We do a lot of the maintenance, but we've also teamed up with the Corner Canyon Trails Foundation, which helps us out with a lot of maintenance. And we had a ton of volunteers. Prior to COVID, we'd average 4,000 volunteer hours a year between Boy Scouts, the high school biking teams, corporate groups that would come out and help us do maintenance on our trails as well.
One of the things I've heard is that these engineered trails, even though they're designed to be maintained, that you guys have had some challenges just trying to maintain them. You have to put a lot of money into maintenance. Have those trails improved over time, or you've been able to reduce those maintenance costs?
Yeah, you know, by building them sustainable, it reduces maintenance on them. However, it also depends on the soil. Where we're hiking right now, it's sand and decomposed granite. The other side of the canyon's clay, so that does take more maintenance, especially when people go out and use the trails when they're muddy. Then we have more erosion and puddling issues and trail widening that we need to go in and fix. The majority of our maintenance is just trimming back the trees and bushes that kind of crowd in on the trail.
Okay.
And of course, our downhill bike trails require a lot more maintenance because they're heavily used, and they really kind of take a beating, especially with jumps and different features. Those require some more maintenance, and we've got a great group of volunteers that come out and work on our bike trails as well.
Mountain biking has kind of become the dominant use on a lot of these trails by far.
Oh yeah, on some of our trail counters, they'll differentiate between hikers and mountain bikers, and on a couple of our counters, it's 75% of the use is mountain bikes, 25% hikers, but then it flips at other trailheads. It all depends on what trails are closer by.
How are you dealing with e-bikes?
We allow Class 1 e-bikes. We had
Class 1 is the smallest motor.
Smallest motor. Even pedal assist will only assist you up to like 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
We really haven't had many issues with e-bikes. I've had some complaints about them. It's more we're dealing with these new, people call them e-bikes, but they're electric motorcycles.
Electric motorcycles, yeah.
We'll see those, but with e-bikes really hasn't been an issue. I know there's a whole debate on whether they're a bike or not. We followed the state code on what classifies an e-bike, and our Parks and Trails Committee, we spent a lot of time discussing it, and we decided we will only allow Class 1.
Well, it's a great trail system you've built out there. I'm very impressed with it. Great work.
Thank you.
It's I know that it can be a real headache. I've watched Parks and Rec.
It's all true. It's all true.
But thank you for coming out here today with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Greg,
Thanks for
and
documenting all this.
We'll talk to you later. I'm sure we'll talk more as we continue to work on the trail. So.
Sure. Have a good rest of your hike.
Thank you. This bridge over Bear Canyon, probably the most spectacular thing we're going to see along the entire Bonneville Shoreline Trail. It's just amazing that they were able to put this up here. In fact, I asked Greg how they did this, how they got this built.
The original Bonneville Shoreline Trail actually went up into Bear Canyon, but because the local water company used that for culinary, the whole area was closed down to dogs and horses. The Corner Canyon Trails Foundation approached the local water company about putting a bridge lower down Bear Canyon, and part of doing that would open the area to dogs because the bridge is so high above the creek. And then working with engineers from Wadsworth Construction, Corner Canyon Trails Foundation, Sandy City, Draper City, and a bunch of other donors, we decided to have the bridge put in. It went in really quick, and by putting in that bridge, we now allow dogs across the bridge to continue all the way into Sandy.
Am I allowed to ask how much it cost?
You know, I can't remember. You know, they built the roads up to it, and that thing was put up in a matter of months.
Crap, I lost my walking stick. Right, I was just holding it here and it went right down through that crack and I saw it like hit the trees.
Yeah, you go get the stuff.
This is cool. Hey. Oh, sorry. This segment of the trail right here is one of the many episodes in the saga of building the BST. When they first built this trail in the late 90s, they forgot to secure all the correct permissions, and we were going across a little triangle here of private property. And the landowner got upset that they had built the trail through his property without his permission. And for years, this section here was actually fenced off. You could not cross it because he'd actually built a fence across it. But fortunately, they were able to eventually sort out things. I think there's an easement to cross it now, so we were able to use it. Sandy City only has a very short section of trail down here in the corner of the city, maybe about a mile, that was recently built, but I'm grateful to them for being willing to do it. It's a little bit of an annoying trail, goes up a big hill and then has to come back right back down this hill, but at least it connects it just that much further to a good trailhead, so I'm glad that's here. Well, that Rocky Mouth waterfall was quite the payoff at the end of a long, hot day, but unfortunately the trail just ends right here in the middle of this subdivision for now. Beyond here, it's proving to be extremely difficult to finish the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. So the next few episodes are going to basically just be some short stretches that are done, kind of isolated little bits. So in fact, we'll also be looking at some bits that are done on the west side of the valley in Harriman. So we'll see you then.